para hablar de todo ello llega a este escenario nuestro siguiente experto. Él es Juan Velásquez, director general de la Oficina de Colaboraciones Internacionales de la Universidad de Purdue. Un aplauso.
Muchas gracias. Te agradezco. Igual que Jean-Luc, voy a comenzar mi presentación en español. Obviamente hablo español, soy colombiano, estudié en la Universidad de Purdue, pero en la parte técnica me toca cambiar un poco al inglés para no tener tantos gaps en mi comunicación. Entonces, les pido disculpas por no continuar toda la presentación en español. Entonces, como decían, represento a la Universidad de Purdue. Es una universidad que está en el estado de Indiana. En cuanto al sistema educacional, para darles un contexto de por qué podemos, por ejemplo, que estamos en el top 10 de las públicas, hay alrededor de 1.600 universidades en Estados Unidos. Entonces, el estar en el top 10, con ello conlleva muchas implicaciones del tipo de trabajo que podemos hacer. Parte de mi presentación está estructurada para poder también encontrar similaridades o similitudes. Sorry, I went back to Spanish. Similarities with Valencia. So I very much appreciated the opportunity. And so I was trying to find ways in which I can convey how the opportunity that we have seized at Purdue, which first was a challenge, it's also an opportunity that Valencia can seize. So where is Purdue University? Purdue University is located in the state of Indiana. As you can see from the map, it's in the middle of the country. And I say that because for a lot of us, especially those of us that come from Latin America, we usually gravitate towards the coast of the United States. So we're familiar with California, Florida, New York, but forget that there's a lot of stuff in the middle. Why is Indiana so relevant? Indiana is actually known as the crossroads of America. And by that, in the diagram, you can picture that it says that within a 12-hour drive, we can touch 80% of the population of the United States. What most people won't know is that besides the fact that we have a very robust infrastructure of highways, similar to what you all have in the European Union, even though we're in the middle of the country and we're not close to any coast, we also have mobility via ports. We have two ports. One port in the south of the state that connects to the Mississippi River, and one port in the northern part of the state, in the border with the state of Michigan and the state of Illinois. And I say that because when you're moving equipment, when you're moving things, being able to have many mobilities, many ways to move products, gives you a competitive advantage to be able to incentivize companies to move to your state. So everything that I'm presented is probably more than likely one of the pitches that was made to a company I'm going to describe in a minute that we were able to land at Purdue University for semiconductors. So who are we? There's about 108,000 of us, and by that I mean those that are students, since we're talking about talent development. The system overall has about 57,000 students between the two large campuses, meaning the main campus is in the city of West Lafayette in Indiana, and we now have an extension campus in the city of Indianapolis, which is the capital of the state of Indiana. We also have about a 600,000 alumni ecosystem that we rely on very heavily. You will see in a few minutes in a slide how that alumni are so crucial to the way we engage within the United States. These are some of our positionings. I'm not going to go over all of them. I will just say we are the land-grant university of the state of Indiana. We're the Science and Agriculture University of the state of Indiana. We have a very robust system in the state. We have two other very good universities, Indiana University and University of Notre Dame. We are in the top 10 of employers that love working with us as an entity. And as the first slide said, we're in the top 10 of public universities in the United States. I'm not going to go over all of them. I just wanted to showcase the breadth in which we are represented. Some of them are rankings that are academic. Some of them are rankings that come from corporate partners or also from the government. One thing that I will highlight is that, because you will see them in a few slides, one of the changing moments for my university was we're the only university in the United States that can state that for the last 14 years, we have maintained our tuition frozen, meaning we have not raised the cost of education. Traditionally in the US, the cost of education goes by at least by the rate of inflation, if not more. So to be able to say that for the last 14 years, Purdue has been able to maintain its tuition frozen, while at the same time be able to grow from about 32,000 students to 58,000, and be able to have the strategic initiatives that we have been leading, took a lot of work from a lot of colleagues within Purdue to be able to manage these numbers. What else are we known for? We're known, within the United States, we're known as the cradle of astronauts. Hopefully you recognize the gentleman in the picture, that's Neil Armstrong. He is a graduate of Purdue University. There's a building named after him, which actually houses the School of Aeronautics and Astronautics, as well as other departments within the College of Engineering. We had the first and the most recent humans on the moon. We've had about 30, I think now it's a little bit over 30 astronauts that have been graduates of Purdue. And in 2027, the university will be leading an all-volume maker. That's the name of our mascots, with Virgin Galactic. And actually, we just met the crew a few months back. This is how we're composed. So there's 10 colleges. The largest one right now is the College of Engineering, and it has been traditionally the largest, because as I said, we're the Science and Agriculture University for the state of Indiana. That college, the College of Engineering, is ranked number 4 in the United States, particularly in graduate education. And then the other large college that we have is the College of Agriculture, and that college is ranked number 3 in the United States and number 5 in the world. I started with the College of Engineering because it's going to be the most relevant to the conversation we're talking today. We're talking about semiconductors. That's the reason that brings us here. And they have been the ones that have been leading a lot of the conversations, both within Purdue University and with industry and the local governments. A little bit more about our composition as far as students, because I think it matters. As I said, there's about 57,000 students. Of those 57,000, 9,300 as of the census of last year, because they happen in the fall. Our semester starts in August, goes until the following May. Was 9,400 students were international. That's about a little bit less than 20% of our population. Of those, 5,300 are graduate students. And although I removed the slide before for timing, where it talks about our international students and the undergraduate population, they only represent 10%. But at the graduate level, they represent 56%. Why am I highlighting that? Because a lot of our innovation, which I'll show a few figures later on, a lot of our innovation comes from our faculty that are leading researching new technologies. They're the ones that apply for grants through all the different agencies or corporations. But at the end of the day, it's a grad student population that ends up doing a lot of the work. So 56% of that graduate population is foreign-born, meaning they don't come from the United States. So we rely very heavily on talent development. And I bring that up because you will see in a minute how we have engaged, as a third part of my presentation, how we are engaging with Latin America, which is a critical component to our strategy moving forward. And I would try to advise that Europe also looks at Latin America as a great destination or origin from highly educated talent. Oh, there's the undergraduate. I'm sorry, I forgot that I had put it in there. Before I transition into the second topic, which is semiconductors, let me just say that one of the most significant parts of American universities is entrepreneurship component, and by that is done through the research enterprise. Last year alone, Purdue secured close to $1 billion in expenditures for research, and those are the ones that allow us to be able to continue to contribute to the local economy, both of Greater Lafayette as well as the state of Indiana and the United States. So now I'm going to transition to semiconductors, and I'm going to do so because the transition within Purdue and the growth for Purdue in the specific area happened because of our facilities. So I am showcasing our Berg nanotechnology. That's the space within Purdue that a lot of the research is being done by faculty and students. It was established in 2005 by a former university president. As of 2023, the spaces, in particular the labs, underwent a significant enhancement or improvements with an investment of about $100 million that came from resources from the state, but also from the university, as we knew we needed to compete and to remain relevant, to be able to secure research dollars and to, again, try to recruit companies to come to our location and conduct their research jointly with us. The next part on that slide, the third bullet, is very important, and that is related to the use of the facilities. We cannot, they're very expensive facilities to run, so we cannot train as many of our students as we would like. We don't have enough capacity in them, even though it's a huge facility. So for the last 2 years or so, the university has been working creating digital twins to be able to mimic the labs that we currently have in those labs, so the students and others can be exposed to the kind of environments they're going to be encountering in corporations and in labs if they're doing work in semiconductors. But besides the physical infrastructure, another component that attracted a lot of the companies and federal funding from the federal government was our infrastructure that is not physical. So the ones I want to highlight, because now we're working on the expansion or extension of NanoHub. So NanoHub is an online science gateway for making microelectronic simulations and data pervasive in education and in R&D. It's free. It's accessible to anybody right now in the world. Sometimes not all of the tools are available. We were not able to get in specific markets. But that you can see some of the statistics of the impact that has done. So it was both types of infrastructure that we were conveying to companies and agencies that Purdue had the upper hand in a lot of those. So how do we, when I was contacted to be a speaker, I was told that they had done a lot of research about Purdue and semiconductors and the positioning that we now have both within the country but also internationally. And part of that is due to the support of the three gentlemen that you see on the slide. So let me start with the context. So in 2019, Keith Crack, who is a Purdue graduate, he's an alum of industrial engineering at Purdue, was recruited by President Trump at that point to work in State Department as the Undersecretary for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment. Shortly after he got that position, he recruited our newly dean, Dr. Meng Shang, to take a year sabbatical and to go to Washington, D.C., and to advise him on new technologies. At that point, Purdue University was being led by Mitch Daniels, the last picture. And Mitch Daniels was the former governor of Indiana for 2 periods, and then he became the president of Purdue University. Why do I bring that together? Because I believe if all these 3 gentlemen had not been in their positions at the time that, unfortunately, we all went through COVID, we would not be where we are right now in our developments in semiconductor education. So if you look at the dates, when Keith and Meng were at State, they had to encounter the challenges of COVID. One of the first things that they saw, as they were, as some other speakers were mentioning yesterday, was the constraints on supply chains. And one of the first ones that they encountered, of course, was semiconductors, due to the leading role of Taiwan. And although the technology was created in the US, we're not manufacturing to the same amount as countries in Asia. So it was the 3 of them that enabled or that provided the leadership for what I'm going to present next, which is a lot of our efforts on semiconductors. Oh, something happened. Can we get the slides back on, please? Thank you. Appreciate it. So around the same time, by the time that President Chang, I'm sorry, back then he was the Dean of Engineering, my apologies. Dean Chang returned to Purdue. The federal government in 2022 released the CHIPS Act. Both Keith Crack and, at that point, Dean Chang were part of the write-up of the US's version of the CHIPS Act. They were allowed $52 billion that were to be spent when the United States for, again, incentivizing the industry to come back to the States and to be more resilient moving forward. Some of those funds were funds that universities like Arizona State and Purdue applied to be able to engage with Latin America. And I mentioned that because that's the last part of my presentation, but we're not quite there yet. There we go. So the timing, sorry, so I want to highlight how the timing plays a critical role. So if I can go even one back, well, that's why, even one more. So I said this all started 2019, 2021. Then we moved to CHIPS Act. We moved to 2022. And if you saw this slide before, it said that the CHIPS Act was released in August of 2022. By September of 2022, we were already hosting at Purdue University both the Department of State, Anthony Blinken, who was the US Secretary of State, as well as Gina Raimondo, who was the Secretary of Commerce. So within a month, because of the positioning of our former, actually was the chair of the Board of Trustees, Keith Crack, and our Dean of Engineering, we were able to land the 2 highest representatives for a lot of the efforts of semiconductors at Purdue. They were there so they can see the infrastructure, but also we were going to start talking about what was it that Purdue was going to be working on in semiconductors. And the most important component, since that my presentation has to do with talent, is the semiconductors degree program, which is the focus of what I'm going to be talking for the next 10 minutes or so. I will also mention some of the collaborations and the implications in economic development with some of the companies that you see in this slide that we were able to recruit to come to the state of Indiana, particularly to Purdue University. And lastly, our leadership role, not only within the United States, but also globally, as we collaborate and we put some efforts in the American continent to be able to secure the continent supply. So what was the first thing that Purdue did to be able to get to this point? We had potentially worked with, probably not all of them, but at least 50% of the companies that you see listed our partners, corporate partners that Purdue traditionally would engage with. What semiconductors did is that it provided an opportunity for us to bring them all together. So we created, or Purdue University created, the Semiconductors Degree Leadership Board. And it was instrumental for us to be able to hear directly from companies in talent development what were the gaps that they were encountering, what were the things that they needed our faculty members and our students to be working on to be able to have the talent be better prepared by the time they arrive at their sites. So what is Semiconductors Degree Program? It's a comprehensive across the university initiative for semiconductor education or workforce development. It has been endorsed by about 18 of the semiconductor industry CEOs and is advised by a member or a board of members, so about 38 members. It brings together faculty from all areas of the university. Those colleges, that's what I highlighted, how we're composed, those colleges, specifically engineering, the College of Science, the Polytechnic, but really a lot of them in some way or another are part of it as well. It got off to a very fast start, and it has positioned Purdue to be the national leader in semiconductor education right now in the United States. Those are just some of the early accolades that the university was getting from the press for the work that we had done. This is the pipeline that we have created. And it involves 3 of our largest colleges that you can see: engineering, science, and polytechnic, the number of students that they have, how many are undergrads, how many are grad, and then the different programs. I'm going to talk about some of those in a few minutes shortly. But also brought in another local partner that we have in the state of Indiana, which is Ivy Tech. Ivy Tech is a community college which focuses mostly on the formation or the education of technicians and technologists. So all of them are part of our ecosystem, and we work very closely with them as well. And we have a branch of the community college within our cities. What was one of the first tasks that this group had? And it was to 5 and 5 is what they called it. It was to increase by 5 times in 5 years the numbers of Purdue students that had to be interested and looking at pursuing careers in semiconductors. I'm going to go over some of those programs. So I'm not going to go into the specifics in this slide. I wanted to put them all together. So I'm going to try to go through them quickly one by one. First, we had to start with the most basic. So the most basic was to develop a course on semiconductor fabrication. It's a free online course. Any of you can take it if you so choose. It was not just created by us. We looked at our colleagues from UT Austin, Stanford, Berkeley, Georgia Tech, Penn State, and our corporate partners, Intel, ASML, and TEL. The second one was to create the one before was more technical. The second was to try to educate a broader audience. So those that are experts in the area created Changing the World with Chips as an introduction to semiconductors. That's also a course that is readily available. The next aspect that we created, and this came directly from industry, one of the first feedback we got from industry was that although we were preparing very good engineers in the areas of interest, by the time they got to the company, they still needed about a year of training to be well-versed within the semiconductor industry. So what they asked us was to work jointly with them in creating a program that exposed students within their first and second year to semiconductors, so that they can be enamored, they can see a path moving forward with their careers. So maybe areas of software or others were not the recruiters of the best talent, but that the students found also a pathway for themselves to go into the industry. So the first program is called STARS. is a summer program. The students receive a stipend that is shared within Purdue and the companies that sponsor the program. And you can read on it a little bit more. The next one was to also try to embed it within our existing teaching structure. So they created what is called vertically integrated projects, and there's 2 of those that are specific to semiconductors. And that's, again, if you remember, my semi before was to expose students at an earlier time to the semiconductor industry. Then we started, once we established those, then in parallel, they were also looking at, and some of the presenters at the end of the day yesterday, they were talking about the different ways that they have tried to increase exposure to semiconductors. Is similar to what we did. So we created concentrations, we created interdisciplinary degrees, concentrations both on the undergraduate and the master's, and we also try to embed it as much into other areas of knowledge outside of engineering and technology so that other students in other colleges could also be exposed. I'm going to skip that one. So what has that allowed us to bring? So in 2024, I believe, we announced that SK Hynix was going to open the first, for the US, is the first manufacturing facility within a campus. So SK Hynix will be opening its manufacturing plant in 2028. It's a $4.2 billion investment, 3.9 by SK Hynix, and about $400 million, I'm sorry, of resources from the CHIPS Act and also from local governments. We also were able to get MediaTek to open an R&D operation within our campus as well. That has allowed us to be able to landing SK Hynix and then all the supply chain that's going to bring so they can be closer to it, has enabled us to also start engaging internationally. So shortly after the CHIPS Act in 2023, some of our vice presidents and others were already engaging at the G7 summit. In 2023 as well, our vice president, who used to be my supervisor, Vijay Raghunathan, he was leading some of the work in India. We got to, as I said, we also have been fortunate enough to recruit IMEC to also engage with us at Purdue. And I say that as a European entity. We also are already engaging with Europe, and that's part of the reason I'm here. We would like to engage even more, and I hope that this forum is going to be that way to do so. I already talked about SK Hynix, so for time I'm going to save that. The next approach that we had to take was how do we engage with those partners, Japan, India, Latin America. And the way that we're working on it right now is leveraging our online infrastructure to be able to continue with the education of citizens across the world in areas of semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and the same. Purdue Online is our virtual way of providing education. They provide, especially at they don't provide undergraduate degrees, they provide master's degrees for the most part. And those are virtually offered, but it's offered by the same faculty members that a student will have at Purdue. So that has provided us the opportunity to be the #1 university in the United States with the most highly ranked programs, especially at the master's level. And that has become the way by which we are, I'm going to skip this one, by which we have engaged with our partners in Latin America. So over the last 2 years, it's been due to the CHIPS Act and some funds that were available called the ITSE funds. There were a couple of countries in the Americas that were identified as allies for the United States in the area of semiconductors. And those were the Dominican Republic, and we hosted President Abinader in March of 2025. We work with the government to create the roadmap for semiconductors, meaning what is going to be their pathway to be able to be also part of this conversation on semiconductors. We are collaborating with the country of Panama, so also in 2025, we signed an agreement with then ambassador in Washington, D.C. And we already have our first ongoing program, and that is that we have brought over 14 students from Panama's universities to come to Purdue in areas of semiconductors to do research for 6 months, and those are financed by the country of Panama. Costa Rica, the same way. I was actually just there about 2 weeks ago. That's why I was late responding to Carlos when I received the invitation. And we signed an agreement with the Vice Minister of Commerce. I have 2 closing slides, because I know I'm already over time. This was the opportunity that our leadership saw in 2023. And I checked with Carlos yesterday that my next slide would be correct. And so I think, to me, this is the opportunity that I see from these last 2 days that you have so graciously hosted me here in Valencia, how and why I see the parallels of where Purdue was. We were not leading in the area of semiconductors. I would argue the United States was also not leading, but everything changed, and those that responded quickly and with clarity were the ones that are leading. And so, again, thank you for inviting me. This is our network. I would love to see Spain, specifically Valencia, in our map. Through that map, you can see where are all of our, not operations, but those that we collaborate with. And lastly, I will just say we would love to welcome you to Purdue University. We have discussed over the last couple days the possibility of a mission from Valencia to come and understand what it is that we have built at Purdue University, which has not been by ourselves. We have built it with support from the local government, the federal government, and the companies, and other universities as well. So again, thank you very much for this platform. I congratulate you for what you have been working on. Maite and Carlos, thank you for the invitation of Purdue being part of the forum. Okay.